The protagonist begins their story by reflecting on a life that had been, at first glance, ordinary and unremarkable. Yet, beneath the surface of this seemingly normal existence lay a habit that had woven itself into the very fabric of their identity, a reliance on alcohol. What started as casual social drinking gradually morphed into a dependency that colored every aspect of their daily routine. Each evening, the protagonist would find solace in the amber liquid, believing it to be a harmless escape from the stresses of life. Friends and family often dismissed their concerns, chalking it up to youthful exuberance or the pressures of adulthood. The protagonist felt justified in their choices, convinced that they were merely indulging in a common vice that many others shared. As days turned into months and months into years, the protagonist became increasingly entangled in this cycle of dependence. The initial thrill of liberation gave way to a dull ache of regret and shame. Despite the fleeting moments of joy that alcohol provided, deeper emotions began to fester, an insidious blend of envy and self-loathing. They found themselves envying those who could enjoy a drink without losing control, while simultaneously feeling trapped in an unending spiral of poor choices. Yet, even amidst this turmoil, there was a sense of denial. The protagonist clung to the belief that they were still in control. Then came the fateful night that would change everything. It was an evening like any other, filled with laughter and camaraderie among friends at a local bar. The atmosphere was electric, laughter echoing off the walls as glasses clinked together in celebration. But as the night wore on, the protagonist felt an unsettling pressure building in their chest, an ominous sign that something was terribly wrong. Dismissing it as mere anxiety fueled by too many drinks, they continued to indulge, seeking comfort in the familiar embrace of alcohol. Suddenly, everything shifted. A sharp pain pierced through the haze of intoxication, radiating from their chest and sending shockwaves of fear coursing through their body. The laughter around them faded into a distant murmur as darkness began to creep in at the edges of their vision. Panic set in as they realized they were losing control, not just over their body but over their very life. In those harrowing moments, time seemed to stretch infinitely. Each heartbeat felt like an eternity as they struggled against the encroaching shadows. As consciousness slipped away, the protagonist was thrust into an abyss, a void where time and space lost all meaning. It was here that they encountered an overwhelming sense of dread, an oppressive darkness that threatened to consume them whole. The sensation was suffocating. It felt as if they were being pulled into an endless chasm where hope was but a distant memory. Figures began to emerge from this darkness, shadows that loomed large and menacing, embodying all the fears and regrets that had haunted them throughout their life. Among these figures stood one particularly terrifying presence, a demonic entity that seemed to personify every bad choice made and every moment of weakness succumbed to during their years of dependency. This apparition spoke with a voice like thunder, echoing through the void with accusations that cut deep into the protagonist's soul. It revealed truths they had long buried, how their addiction had not only isolated them from loved ones but had also clouded their judgment and warped their perception of reality. In this moment of confrontation, the protagonist felt an internal battle raging within them, a conflict between denial and acceptance. Initially resistant to acknowledge these harsh realities, they grappled with feelings of shame and guilt that surged forth like tidal waves crashing against rocky shores. The weight of these accusations bore down heavily upon them. It was as if every regret came rushing back to remind them of all they had lost. Just when despair threatened to engulf them entirely, a radiant light pierced through the darkness. A figure emerged from beyond the shadows, illuminating everything around with warmth and compassion. This benevolent presence exuded love and understanding. It was a stark contrast to the malevolence that had just threatened to consume them. With gentle authority, this figure addressed the protagonist, challenging them with profound truths about love and redemption. "You have been loved even in your darkest moments," it said softly yet firmly. "You are not defined by your mistakes. You have always had the power to choose differently." These words resonated deeply within the protagonist's heart, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the despair. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, they began to see glimpses of light breaking through the shadows, a path leading back toward healing and wholeness. As this transformative encounter unfolded, the protagonist felt an overwhelming sense of release wash over them, a liberation from guilt and shame that had long shackled their spirit. They understood now that while their past choices had led them astray, there was still time for redemption and growth. With newfound clarity, they vowed to return to life with purpose, to seek healing not only for themselves but also for others who might be struggling with similar demons. When consciousness finally returned, it did so with a jolt. The stark fluorescent lights of a hospital room replaced the dark abyss from which they had emerged. The beeping machines served as reminders of both fragility and resilience. Life pulsed around them once more. Yet even as reality settled back into place, shadows lingered. The disbelief from friends who could not comprehend what had transpired during those harrowing moments weighed heavily on their heart. In sharing their experience with loved ones, they encountered skepticism and doubt. Many dismissed it as mere hallucination brought on by trauma or intoxication. This disbelief deepened feelings of isolation within the protagonist. How could they convey such profound truths when others remained trapped in ignorance? Yet amidst this struggle for understanding lay an unwavering determination. They would not allow fear or doubt to extinguish their newfound light. With each passing day following their awakening, the protagonist began making tangible changes, small yet significant steps toward reclaiming agency over their life. They sought therapy and embraced support groups where vulnerability became strength rather than weakness. They learned to confront emotions head-on instead of numbing them with substances. Slowly but surely, healing began its gentle work within. The journey toward transformation was not without its challenges. Temptation still lurked at every corner, but armed with insight gained from their near-death experience, NDE, they forged ahead resolutely. Each act of kindness extended toward others became both cathartic release and profound reminder. True fulfillment lay not in indulgence but rather in connection, with oneself and those around them. As time passed by like flowing water, each moment precious, the protagonist discovered joy anew, laughter shared with friends no longer masked by alcohol's haze, sunsets admired without longing for escape, relationships nurtured rather than neglected out of fear or shame. Ultimately, this journey became one not just about personal redemption but also about inspiring others who might find themselves ensnared within similar struggles. A testament that transformation is possible even when darkness seems insurmountable. Through sharing stories openly, leading workshops focused on recovery, the protagonist endeavored tirelessly to illuminate paths for others seeking solace amidst chaos, empowering individuals grappling with addiction or emotional turmoil along their own journeys toward healing. In doing so, through acts born out compassion, they found purpose beyond themselves, a renewed sense belonging forged through shared experiences where vulnerability united rather than divided souls navigating life's complexities together. This story serves as both cautionary tale yet beacon hope illuminating possibility. No matter how far one strays from light, there exists always opportunity to return home again, to embrace love fully despite past mistakes, and ultimately become agents of positive change within the world around us. As the protagonist felt themselves being pulled into an oppressive darkness, an overwhelming sense of dread enveloped them. The air grew thick and heavy, making it difficult to breathe, as shadows began to emerge from the void. These figures, dark and indistinct, loomed at the edges of their consciousness, whispering secrets of regret and despair. Each shadow seemed to pulse with a life of its own, drawing closer and closer, until they could almost feel the chill of their presence against their skin. Among these ominous forms, one figure stood out, a demon-like entity that exuded a palpable malevolence. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly fire, piercing through the darkness and locking onto the protagonist with an intensity that sent shivers down their spine. This demon was not merely a figment of imagination. It was a grotesque embodiment of all the self-destructive behaviors that had plagued the protagonist for years. It represented the alcohol that had become both a crutch and a cage, the envy that twisted their heart into knots, and the pride that had built walls between them and those they loved. The entity's voice was like gravel grinding against metal, harsh and unyielding as it began to speak. "You thought you could escape me," it taunted, each word dripping with disdain. "You believed your vices were harmless distractions, but look where they have led you, into this abyss." The protagonist felt a surge of anger mixed with fear as they listened to the demon's accusations. "You don't understand," they shouted back, their voice echoing in the emptiness. "I'm not a bad person, I just wanted to feel good. I needed something to numb the pain." But even as they spoke, doubt crept in. The words felt hollow against the weight of truth that hung in the air like a dense fog. The demon merely laughed, a sound devoid of any warmth or compassion. "Numbing the pain? You've only masked it. You've turned your back on everything that matters. Your family, your friends, your very soul." With each accusation, memories flooded back. Moments of laughter turned sour by drunken arguments, friendships severed by neglect, opportunities lost in a haze of intoxication. The protagonist's heart raced as they struggled against this internal conflict. They had spent so long denying the reality of their choices, convincing themselves that they were simply living life on their own terms. Yet here was this creature, forcing them to confront the consequences head-on. "Do you see?" the demon continued, its voice now a low growl that reverberated through the darkness. "You are alone because you chose to isolate yourself. You pushed everyone away while you clung to your poison. The protagonist felt their defenses crumbling under the weight of these harsh truths. They had built a fortress around their heart, fortified by denial and pride, but now it felt like those walls were closing in on them. In that moment of vulnerability, clarity pierced through the fog of despair. The protagonist realized how far they had strayed from their true self, a self that once knew joy and connection without reliance on substances or destructive emotions. They remembered laughter shared over simple pleasures, moments spent in genuine connection with others before envy had twisted those bonds into something bitter and resentful. "Why do you fight this?" the demon pressed on, sensing the shift in energy. "You know what you are: weak, lost, unworthy." But instead of succumbing to despair, something within the protagonist ignited, a flicker of defiance sparked by recognition of their own power to change. "No," they declared firmly, voice steady despite trembling hands. "I am not defined by my mistakes." The darkness around them seemed to shudder at this declaration, as if recoiling from an unexpected light breaking through its oppressive grip. The demon faltered momentarily. Its expression shifted from smug satisfaction to something resembling confusion. "What do you mean?" it hissed, incredulous at this newfound resolve. "I have made choices I regret," the protagonist replied with growing strength. "But I also have the power to choose differently now." With each word spoken aloud, they felt chains begin to break, each confession liberating them further from the grasp of despair that had held them captive for so long. The shadows surrounding them began to waver as if unsure how to respond to this shift in energy. The protagonist felt lighter somehow. Clarity washed over them like a cleansing tide as they embraced this realization. Acknowledging one's flaws is not weakness but rather an essential step toward growth. The demon's form began to flicker as if losing its grip on reality itself. Its once formidable presence now appeared diminished in comparison to the burgeoning light within the protagonist's heart. "You cannot escape me," it snarled defiantly even as its power waned. "I am choosing to rise above you," came the resolute reply, words infused with newfound determination and purpose. In that moment of confrontation between light and darkness, the struggle between self-doubt and self-acceptance, the protagonist understood that true strength lay not in denying one's flaws but rather in embracing them fully while striving for something greater than oneself. As shadows retreated into oblivion and light began flooding back into existence, their journey toward healing had only just begun, one marked not by perfection but by resilience forged through struggle. Emerging from this encounter transformed yet aware of ongoing challenges ahead, the protagonist set forth determinedly toward reclaiming their life, a life filled with authentic connections grounded in love rather than fear. A journey illuminated by hope where every step taken would echo with purpose long after darkness had faded away entirely. As the confrontation with the demon reached its peak, the oppressive darkness seemed to thicken around the protagonist, suffocating any remnants of hope. The air crackled with tension, and despair clawed at their heart as the entity loomed larger, its malevolent laughter echoing in the void. Just when it felt as if all light would be extinguished, a sudden shift occurred. A radiant glow pierced through the shadows, illuminating the space with a warmth that felt both foreign and familiar. From this light emerged a figure, ethereal and serene, embodying compassion and understanding. The presence was unlike anything the protagonist had ever encountered. It radiated love and acceptance, casting away the darkness that had threatened to consume them. The demon recoiled, its form flickering as if struggling against the brilliance of this new arrival. The figure approached with grace, its eyes filled with an infinite kindness that seemed to penetrate the protagonist's very soul. In that moment, a profound sense of safety enveloped them, as if they had been wrapped in a soft embrace after a long period of cold isolation. "Do not fear," the figure spoke softly, its voice like a gentle breeze rustling through leaves on a warm summer day. "You are not alone in this struggle." The words resonated deeply within the protagonist, stirring something long buried, a yearning for connection and understanding that had been overshadowed by years of self-imposed isolation. "Who are you?" the protagonist managed to ask, their voice trembling yet filled with curiosity. "Why have you come?" The figure smiled, a knowing smile that conveyed both wisdom and patience. "I am here to remind you of your true nature. You have wandered far from your path, but you can always return to the light." As the figure spoke, memories flooded back, moments of joy and laughter shared with loved ones before addiction had clouded their vision. The protagonist felt tears welling up in their eyes as they recalled how easily they had let go of those connections, choosing instead to drown in self-destructive behaviors that only deepened their loneliness. "You have been lost," the figure continued gently, "but you have also been loved, even in your darkest moments." These words struck a chord deep within the protagonist's heart. They had spent so long believing they were unworthy of love due to their choices. Now they were being told that love had always been there, waiting patiently for them to acknowledge it. "But how can I find my way back?" the protagonist asked, desperation creeping into their voice. "I feel so far gone." The figure stepped closer, radiating warmth that enveloped the protagonist like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "The path back is not about perfection. It is about acceptance and forgiveness, of yourself and others. You must first recognize that every choice you made was born from pain and fear." In that moment of vulnerability, something shifted within the protagonist. They began to understand that their struggles were not signs of weakness but rather reflections of their humanity, a shared experience among countless others who had faced similar battles. "You are here now," the figure continued with unwavering compassion. "You have the power to choose differently moving forward." The demon writhed in frustration at this exchange, its form flickering erratically as it sensed its hold on the protagonist weakening. "You cannot trust this illusion," it hissed, desperation lacing its voice. "It is just another trick to lead you astray." But the figure remained unperturbed, standing firm against the darkness. "Trust in yourself," it urged gently. "You are capable of change. You can reclaim your life and your spirit." With each word spoken by this benevolent presence, a sense of clarity washed over the protagonist, a dawning realization that they were not defined by their past but rather by their willingness to embrace growth and healing. "I don't know where to start," they admitted softly, feeling both frightened and exhilarated by this newfound hope. The figure smiled again, its eyes sparkling with encouragement. "Start by forgiving yourself for what has been done. Acknowledge your pain without letting it define you." As these words settled into their heart, something profound shifted within the protagonist's spirit. They felt an overwhelming wave of relief wash over them. The burdens they had carried for so long began to lift as if being released into the light surrounding them. The weight of shame and guilt started to dissipate like mist under sunlight. "You were never alone," the figure reiterated softly, "and you are always worthy of love." With each affirmation, the protagonist felt themselves becoming lighter, freer from the chains that had bound them for years. In this moment of clarity and connection with something greater than themselves, the realization dawned. They could choose to step into this light. They could embrace a new beginning filled with hope instead of despair. As darkness receded further into oblivion, the demon's form began to fade away entirely, its power diminished by love's unwavering presence. The protagonist stood taller than before, no longer cowering under fear but rising empowered by acceptance. "I will find my way back," they declared resolutely, a promise made not just to themselves but also honoring every moment spent lost in shadows. With renewed strength coursing through their veins, the protagonist took a step forward toward this radiant figure, toward healing, toward rediscovering joy amidst life's complexities, knowing now that while challenges lay ahead, they would face them armed with compassion for themselves and others alike. As light enveloped them completely, the journey toward redemption began anew, a journey illuminated by love where every step taken resonated with purpose, a path leading home again, back into connection, with oneself, with others, and ultimately with life itself, a testament to resilience forged through struggle, the embodiment of hope reborn amidst darkness transformed into light forevermore. Awakening in a hospital room, the protagonist felt as if they had emerged from a deep, disorienting sleep. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air, and the rhythmic beeping of machines created a strange symphony that contrasted sharply with the vivid memories of their recent experience. As their eyes adjusted to the harsh fluorescent lights, a wave of realization washed over them. They were alive. But this was not just a return to consciousness. It was a rebirth, one that had irrevocably altered their perception of life and death. Sitting up slowly, they glanced around the room, taking in the familiar faces of family and friends who had gathered at their bedside. Relief flickered across their features as they saw them, yet beneath that relief lay an undercurrent of anxiety. How would they explain what had happened? How could they convey the depth of their transformation to those who had not shared in the experience? The protagonist felt an overwhelming urge to articulate the profound truths they had encountered in that otherworldly realm, the love, the light, and the undeniable sense of purpose that now coursed through their veins. "Guys," they began, their voice trembling slightly as they struggled to find the right words. "You won't believe what I saw. I was in this place where everything felt so real, so connected." The room fell silent as everyone leaned in closer, curiosity etched on their faces. But as the protagonist continued to speak, describing the darkness they had faced, the demon that had tormented them, and the radiant figure that had guided them back, they noticed subtle shifts in expressions. Skepticism began to creep in like a shadow across their loved ones' faces. "Are you sure it wasn't just a hallucination?" one friend asked hesitantly, concern mingling with doubt. "You were unconscious for quite some time. Maybe it was just your mind playing tricks on you. The words hit hard, like a cold splash of water on a warm day. The protagonist felt their heart sink. How could they convey the authenticity of such an experience when even those closest to them seemed unable to grasp its significance? No, they insisted, desperation creeping into their voice. It was real. I felt everything, the love, the acceptance. I can't explain it fully, but it changed me. Yet even as they spoke, uncertainty gnawed at them. How could anyone understand something so profound when it defied conventional logic? The very essence of their experience felt too sacred to be reduced to mere skepticism or disbelief. As conversations continued around them, concerned whispers about recovery and health, the protagonist felt increasingly isolated within their own body. They were surrounded by people who cared deeply for them, yet an invisible barrier separated their hearts. It was a loneliness that echoed through the room like an uninvited guest. No one could truly fathom what had transpired in those moments between life and death. Days passed in a blur of hospital visits and well-meaning inquiries about how they were feeling physically. Yet each time someone asked about their mental state or emotional well-being, the protagonist hesitated. They longed to share the transformative insights gained during their near-death experience, but feared further alienating themselves from those who couldn't comprehend its weight. One evening, while staring out of the hospital window at the setting sun, a brilliant canvas of oranges and pinks, the protagonist felt a profound sense of longing wash over them. They yearned for connection but found themselves grappling with an overwhelming sense of solitude. How could they bridge this chasm between what they had experienced and what others perceived? It was as if they stood on one side of an expansive canyon while everyone else remained on solid ground, unable or unwilling to take that leap into understanding. In quiet moments alone, memories surfaced, images of love and light intertwined with shadows and fear, and each recollection brought with it both solace and sorrow. They understood now that while transformation is possible through experiences like theirs, communicating such revelations often proved challenging. It required vulnerability and courage to share something so deeply personal with others who might not be ready or willing to accept it. With each passing day in recovery, each moment spent reflecting on newfound clarity, the protagonist began to realize that perhaps not everyone needed to understand fully. Some may never grasp the depth of what had transpired. And yet there remained a flicker of hope within, a desire to help others navigate similar struggles without needing to share every detail of their journey. In time, they began seeking out support groups for individuals who had undergone near-death experiences or profound transformations after trauma. Here, surrounded by those who shared similar stories, who understood without judgment, the protagonist found solace. Together, they laughed and cried as they recounted tales of struggle and redemption. Each story resonated like echoes bouncing off canyon walls, familiar yet unique. Through these connections formed within shared understanding, the protagonist learned that healing often comes not just from personal revelations but also from communal support, a tapestry woven together by threads of compassion and empathy where each individual's journey contributed richness to another's experience. As weeks turned into months and recovery progressed, the protagonist slowly emerged from isolation into connection once more, finding strength and vulnerability while embracing both joy and sorrow alike as essential parts of life's intricate dance. While some friends may never fully comprehend what had transpired during those critical moments, the protagonist discovered peace within themselves, a recognition that true understanding does not always require shared experiences but rather an open heart willing to listen without judgment. And so they embarked on this new chapter, not only carrying forward lessons learned but also committed to helping others find their own paths toward healing, armed with compassion forged through struggle, a beacon illuminating possibilities for those still wandering in darkness seeking light once more. As the protagonist emerged from the shadows of their past, a profound sense of clarity enveloped them. The experiences they had undergone during their near-death experience had ignited a fire within, a relentless desire to transform their life and embrace a new path filled with purpose and connection. No longer would they allow self-destructive behaviors to dictate their choices or cloud their spirit. With each passing day, the weight of their past began to lift, replaced by an invigorating sense of hope and renewal. Determined to reclaim their life, the protagonist started by taking tangible steps toward change. They looked around their home, once cluttered with remnants of old habits, empty bottles, discarded items that no longer held meaning, and felt a surge of motivation. It was time to let go of the physical manifestations of their former self. One by one, they began sorting through belongings, identifying what no longer served them. Clothes that had been worn during moments of despair were packed away, along with trinkets that reminded them of darker times. With every item donated or discarded, they felt lighter, as if shedding layers of an old skin that no longer fit. But the transformation extended beyond merely decluttering their physical space. It was about creating room for new experiences and connections to flourish. The protagonist began volunteering at local shelters and community centers, eager to give back in ways that resonated with their newfound understanding of compassion and empathy. They found joy in helping others who were struggling with addiction or emotional turmoil, sharing stories of resilience that inspired hope in those who felt lost. Through this work, the protagonist discovered a profound sense of fulfillment. Each interaction became a reminder of how far they had come and how much further they could go. They listened intently to the stories of others, stories filled with pain, regret, and longing for change. In these moments of connection, they recognized pieces of themselves reflected back, remnants of the person they once were, but also glimpses of the strength they had cultivated. As time went on, the protagonist felt compelled to take on a more active role in supporting others on their journeys toward healing. They decided to lead support groups for individuals grappling with addiction or emotional struggles. In these gatherings, they created a safe space where vulnerability was not only welcomed but celebrated. Participants shared their experiences openly, their fears, triumphs, and setbacks, while the protagonist facilitated discussions that encouraged self-reflection and growth. Each session became a transformative experience, not just for those attending but also for the protagonists themselves. Witnessing others confront their demons and embrace vulnerability reinforced the idea that healing is not a solitary endeavor. It flourishes in community and connection. The protagonist felt invigorated by the collective strength present in these rooms, a tapestry woven from diverse threads of resilience and hope. Through leading these groups, they also learned valuable lessons about compassion and patience, understanding that everyone's journey is unique and that progress often comes in fits and starts. They became adept at recognizing when someone needed encouragement or when silence was more powerful than words, a skill honed through their own experiences navigating the complexities of recovery. As months turned into years, the protagonist's life transformed in ways they could never have imagined during those dark days. Relationships deepened as they reconnected with family and friends who had once been pushed away. Conversations flowed more freely now, grounded in honesty and mutual understanding. The protagonist shared their journey openly, no longer burdened by shame but rather empowered by vulnerability. In moments of reflection, they marveled at how far they had come, from isolation to connection, from despair to hope. The lessons learned during their near-death experience continued to resonate deeply within them. Love is powerful, healing is possible, transformation is not only achievable but essential. The impact of this journey extended beyond personal growth. It rippled outward into the lives of those around them. Friends began reaching out for support when facing challenges. Family members expressed gratitude for the newfound openness that enriched their relationships. The protagonist recognized that by choosing to embrace change and share their story, they were inspiring others to confront their own struggles, to seek help rather than hide away in shame. In this way, the power of transformation transcended individual experience. It became a collective movement toward healing within their community. People began forming connections based on shared vulnerabilities, rather than superficial interactions masked by pretense. Together, they fostered an environment where authenticity thrived, a sanctuary where individuals could explore their pain without fear of judgment. As the protagonist continued on this path, leading support groups, engaging in community service, they found themselves surrounded by a network of individuals committed to uplifting one another through shared journeys toward healing. They understood now that true fulfillment lies not only in personal growth, but also in lifting others as we rise, creating spaces where love flourishes amid adversity. The narrative culminated in a message infused with hope. Transformation is possible for anyone willing to confront their darkness and seek light anew. Each person carries within them the potential for change, the ability to rewrite their story regardless of past choices or mistakes made along the way. Ultimately, this journey illuminated an undeniable truth. While our paths may diverge at times, filled with challenges that test our resolve, we are never truly alone in our struggles. Together we can forge connections rooted in empathy, a testament to resilience that echoes through generations, a reminder that within every heart lies the capacity for healing and renewal waiting patiently to be embraced once more. Near-death experiences, often abbreviated as NDEs, have long fascinated both researchers and the general public alike. These profound encounters, reported by individuals who have come close to death or experienced clinical death, frequently reveal significant shifts in how people perceive life and death. Those who undergo such experiences often return with a transformed understanding of existence, one that transcends the mundane and touches on the spiritual. The narratives shared by these individuals are not merely accounts of a momentary brush with mortality. they are profound revelations that can alter the course of a person's life. Many who have experienced an NDE report a striking reduction in their fear of death. This transformation is not merely theoretical, it is deeply felt. The fear that once loomed large, an ever-present shadow in the back of their minds, dissipates like mist in the morning sun. Instead of viewing death as an end, they begin to see it as a transition, a passage to another state of being. This newfound perspective allows them to approach life with a sense of urgency and purpose, knowing that their time is finite but also filled with meaning. The existential dread that may have haunted them previously is replaced by a profound appreciation for the present moment. Moreover, studies indicate that individuals who have undergone NDEs often emerge with a heightened valuation of interpersonal relationships. They come to understand that connections with others are among the most significant aspects of life. The trivialities that once consumed their thoughts, material possessions, social status, and fleeting accolades, fade into insignificance when compared to the depth of love and connection they can experience with family and friends. This shift in focus leads many to prioritize relationships over superficial pursuits, fostering deeper bonds and more meaningful interactions. The emotional transformations triggered by NDEs are often accompanied by a sense of completeness, a feeling of being whole and connected to something greater than oneself. Many report experiencing an overwhelming sense of love and acceptance during their encounters, feelings that transcend any earthly understanding. This connection can manifest as an awareness of unity with all living beings, an understanding that we are all part of a larger tapestry woven together by shared experiences and emotions. Such realizations can inspire individuals to live more compassionately, recognizing the interconnectedness of all life. Additionally, those who have had near-death experiences frequently describe moments filled with clarity and insight. They often gain new perspectives on their lives, leading them to re-evaluate their priorities and values. Choices that once seemed inconsequential take on new significance. They may seek to mend broken relationships or pursue passions long neglected. This clarity can serve as a catalyst for profound personal growth, prompting individuals to embrace authenticity in their lives. The impact of these experiences extends beyond individual transformation. It ripples out into communities and families. As individuals return from their encounters with death changed, they often share their insights with loved ones, inspiring those around them to reflect on their own lives and choices. Conversations about mortality become less taboo. Instead, they foster deeper discussions about what it means to live fully and authentically. This collective awakening can lead to a cultural shift where empathy and understanding take precedence over judgment and division. Moreover, the emotional healing experienced by those who undergo NDEs can have lasting effects on mental health. Many report reductions in anxiety and depression following their experiences, as if the weight of existential concerns has been lifted from their shoulders. The newfound appreciation for life encourages them to engage in activities that bring joy and fulfillment, whether through creative expression, community service, or simply spending quality time with loved ones. In essence, near-death experiences serve as powerful reminders of our shared humanity and the fragility of life. They challenge us to confront our fears while encouraging us to embrace love and connection wholeheartedly. As individuals navigate their journeys post-NDE, they become living testaments to the transformative power of these encounters, each story adding another layer to our understanding of existence. Ultimately, the narratives surrounding near-death experiences reveal profound truths about what it means to be alive. They remind us that while life may be finite, our capacity for love, connection, and growth is boundless. By embracing these lessons, by honoring our relationships and seeking deeper connections, we can cultivate lives rich in meaning and purpose. As we reflect on these revelations brought forth by those who have glimpsed beyond the veil of death, we are invited to reconsider our own lives. Are we living authentically? Are we nurturing our relationships? Are we embracing each moment as a precious gift? In answering these questions honestly, we may find ourselves inspired to live more fully, to cherish each day as an opportunity for growth, connection, and love, a legacy worthy of our shared humanity.